As someone who was born in Australia and spent so much of their life living in the US and is now back in Australia, some of the public holidays are a little bit lost on me. Some of them can be quite fun, like having the grand final of a football match off, and even some that I do recognize, like Easter and Christmas. But there's one public holiday that I really don't know a lot about, and that is Anzac Day. Now, growing up in Australia, all that I really knew about Anzac Day was, to be honest, the Anzac Day cookies. They are really good. However, there is, I know, a lot more to Anzac Day than just the biscuits. So that's what I wanted to do today, which is to sit down and really learn about Anzac Day together so you guys can kind of see my live reaction of what really is Anzac Day. That's a lot of bagpipes. And then also maybe you can learn a little bit about it as well. So this isn't my first Anzac Day, as I've actually been living back in Australia for 2 years now, but I never really took the time to sit down and learn about it. I just was kind of like, oh great, it's a holiday, and went along with my day. But I do know that there is so much history behind Anzac Day, and today I just wanted to learn more about the holiday and see why we do have it as a public holiday and what we're remembering. So first I want to talk about what I actually know about Anzac Day. Oh, hello. We're joined here by Murphy today. So with Anzac Day, I know that it stands for Australian New Zealand Army Corps. I know that Anzac cookies are a thing. And that was like the one memory that I really had about it, because when I was growing up in America, my mom would say like, oh, it's Anzac Day. And it'd be just a random day in April to me. But my mom would always make the Anzac Day cookies, which I really loved. And I remember her saying how Anzac cookies are made to last a really long time because they were sent out to soldiers during the war. So I didn't really know what war it was or anything about that. I was just like, great, I get some cookies, but obviously it's a lot bigger than that. I do also work a corporate job on the side of doing this YouTube channel. So every time I go into the city for work, there are some people who are standing around the train stations and handing out different Anzac Day pins. So I've always bought one, but I didn't really know what it meant. I also know that people do an Anzac Day dawn service where they wake up really early and do some kind of memorial for people that fought in the war. And then I also know there's something about Gallipoli, I think is the right way to pronounce it. So instead of just being an ignorant American who comes back to Australia and doesn't learn anything about the history, I thought it would definitely be great if I did a deeper bit of a dive and then shared it with you guys. Also, when I was in Sydney with my friend recently, we have a vlog about it. One of the days we went out to like this memorial service, and I remember seeing this little dome where they had made a miniature of one of the wars. And I think it had something to do with Anzac Day, but I do remember them talking about Australian fighters and then also New Zealand fighters working together. Yeah, this is my limited knowledge, but I really hope today that I can learn a lot more about it and I can just be more knowledgeable about Australian history as well. I learned a lot of my key knowledge about the world in Australian education. So it was very like Australia centric, but then moving over to America, it's very, very American centric, and they don't really talk about other history outside of America. So yeah, I'm very interested to see what I learned today. First, we're gonna start with a video called What is Anzac Day? Okay, I do know that the poppy is quite iconic when it comes to Anzac Day. Iconic? I don't know if that's the right word, but I know that a lot of the time on those Anzac Day pins, they include little poppies. And I know there's something about the lest we forget or something along those lines.
Every year in Australia, we commemorate a very important day in Australian history known as Anzac Day. At this time of the year, you might sometimes bake Anzac biscuits or stand in silence to reflect and remember Anzac soldiers. In 1914, the world was in turmoil at the outbreak of World War I. Though Australia and New Zealand were considered young nations, both of these countries came together to help their British allies in the war.
Fun fact, my boyfriend is from New Zealand, so our ancestors were helping each other out.
These soldiers were called Anzacs, which stands for Australia and New Zealand Army Corps.
I knew that.
On the 25th of April 1915, the Anzacs travelled to a place called the Gallipoli Peninsula to capture the Turkish...
Oh, that's how you spell it. I spelled it with an O. Oh my gosh.
They were met by a fierce defence from Ottoman Turkish soldiers. What they had hoped to be a quick campaign turned out to be 8 months of brutal warfare.
Okay, this looks really similar to the memorial that I went to in Sydney because they had like this dome. I really hope I can find a photo of it. It looked just like mud and soldiers like that, and then that kind of barbed wire everywhere. And it was just like this full miniature, and it looks exactly like that.
8 months after their arrival, the Anzacs evacuated from Gallipoli.
8
but
months?
Not before many soldiers had given their life or suffered great injuries. In fact, over 10,000 Anzacs died at the fierce hand of the war at Gallipoli. Upon their return, Australia has commemorated Anzac Day since the 25th of April 1916, 1 year after the Anzacs first arrived at Gallipoli. There are many symbols and emblems that you might recognise on Anzac Day. Let's have a look at a few of them. Yum, an Anzac biscuit. It can be fun to help bake these and even more fun to eat around Anzac Day. But it's a bit funny to remember Anzac Day by eating a biscuit, isn't it?
Agreed.
Where did they come from? The Anzac biscuit we have today is similar to a type of food many of the Anzac soldiers carried with them. Because they didn't have fridges or shops to get food from, the soldiers needed to eat food that would not go bad over time.
Okay, this is what my mom said as well. They had to keep the cookies like good to go, and because they didn't have refrigeration. So that's so interesting. Oh.
Many carried the first Anzac biscuits, which were a substitute for bread. Though they can be a tasty treat, they also help us remember some of the struggles Anzac soldiers went through. Red poppies were famously found growing in some of the most brutal locations of World War I, such as northern France and Belgium, after the war had ended.
So it's an interesting personal connection that I have with the poppies because they're such an iconic Californian flower, that actually the flower of California, I'm pretty sure. And then also to see that they're part of Anzac Day. It's like, wow, that's really cool.
Because these flowers are very symbolic, they are used as a way for us to remember those fallen by war. They can often be seen being...
Oh, there we go. Lest we forget. That is right. Okay, so that's, I think I remember hearing that maybe Anzac Day last year, but I know it's printed on a lot of memorials as well.
The original Anzac Day was significant because not only was it a day to remember...
Are those all the soldiers that were coming back? That's actually crazy.
When we commemorate Anzac Day, we remember those that have given their lives in service of our country on other occasions as well.
Ah, so Anzac Day isn't just remembering World War I and with Gallipoli, it's a little bit more than that. Wow, I actually really like that.
These services are held at dawn each year because this was the same time Anzac soldiers originally arrived on Gallipoli shores.
Oh, that's why we do a dawn service. Really, it was the reason on when they arrived. Okay. Okay, so that's good to get like a little bit of a breakdown. It actually has a lot of connections to what I already knew about Anzac Day too, so that's really cool. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, this next one is a little bit long. It's about an hour, but I'm also going to put all the links to the videos in the description if any of you guys want to watch it yourself. And then also if you want to share any resources in the comments as well, that would be great because I would love to just learn a little bit more about it too.
Australia and New Zealand.
Is that Flinders Street? Oh my God.
Great optimism. Iconic heroic bushman immortalized in the writings of popular journalists Henry Lawson and Banjo.
Oh my God, this is what old footy looked like. That's crazy. And look at the crowd. Oh my God.
New Zealand was the first country to send troops to South Africa to fight with Britain during the Boer War. Australia also sent 16,000 men to the conflict to pledge its allegiance to the ideals of empire.
Damn. That's a lot of people.
New Zealand's economy was entwined with Britain's fortunes.
This is a bit of the funnel that was hit by one of the shell from the Colliani. Here I have a fragment of the shell.
Oh my God.
Just missed me.
World War II heated. 39% of the Australian forces sent to Greece in April 1941 were killed, wounded, or captured. The campaign was a debacle that was fiercely criticised, especially when it became known that Australian Commander General Blamey had reservations about the plans, but did not inform the Australian government, as he mistakenly believed Prime Minister Menzies supported.
Just seeing all of those people really hurt coming off of the ship just looks so sad to me. And to think that those are the people that just survived. There's so many other people who just died there.
On the morning of February the 19th, 1942, Darwin awoke to the sound of bombing and gunshots when the Japanese launched a surprise air raid on the port city.
You know, I actually recently learned about how Darwin was bombed. I was actually at my grandma's house last night and she was showing me how they thought the Japanese were going to be taking over Darwin and that part of Australia. People started printing off like Japanese currency so that people could start using it in Australia just so it would be within circulation. And I had no idea that Darwin had ever gotten bombed before. I think maybe I had gotten a couple comments on my YouTube channel explaining that it had happened. It's actually crazy to think because growing up, I never thought that Australia ever got attacked. But then growing up in America, obviously 9/11 is talked about a lot. Quite interesting that I wasn't aware that Darwin had gotten bombed. Now I wanted to look more at the memorial that we do for current day Anzac Day. So I'm actually looking at last year's example and I'm just gonna kind of skip through it because at the moment it's 3.5 hours. So I'm not gonna make you guys sit through all of that. Okay, so I know where this is taken at. It's actually in the botanical gardens. I remember specifically going here with my parents and them saying that this flame has never gone out. I think what it really signifies is that, you know, our remembrance for this event will last as long as this flame is on, so the flame is never ever off. And I remember as a kid being like, there's no way, no, like what if it rains? But there's like all this technology around it to make sure that the fire keeps going. Really, it's just like a gas thing, I'm pretty sure. Maybe I could put this on 2 times speed. I have to say, I don't know what that other flag is, where it's like Australian flag but red. If anyone knows, drop that in the comments. Oh, and you can see that that guy has a little poppy in his hat. Oh wow, you can see the march. Wait, and there's a white version of the flag too. Okay, I don't know what all these flags mean, but that's interesting. When it says return services, is that people that have fought in the military just recently? I don't know. Also, oh my gosh, this reminds me of a time where we came and visited Australia after 5 or 6 years that I had been living in America, and I specifically remember the bagpipes. It's the bagpipes that you play when, you know, you're remembering something, or it's like a lot of the time around military or army type remembrance. So, oh my gosh, that was such a deep memory I just unlocked. Oh wow, okay, so this whole thing is just pretty much people marching through. Okay, that makes more sense. Oh, in different groups. Oh, here you go, there's more bagpipes. That's a lot of bagpipes. Wow, there's so many people that come along to this. Whoa, oh my God, there's so many people. I love that you can just hear the birds in the background as well. Oh my God, I just know being there would be so powerful. Like, I'm recording this video a week early, so on actual Anzac Day. On actual Anzac Day, I'll be posting on my Instagram story. So if you want to follow my Instagram, feel free to check that out. And you can see what I'm doing on the actual Anzac Day. Especially being there in person and like hearing the drums and the bagpipe. I feel like it really moves me, especially when I hear like drums and any type of music. Aww. And then they take flowers and put it on the memorial. Why is that making me want to cry? Nothing more than I hate than seeing old people being sad. Like, it just breaks my heart. Oh.
Accompanied by a member of the New Zealand Defence Force, Lieutenant.
Oh my God, that girl's poppy jacket looks iconic. Wow. I think it's also interesting that they're able to bring all of the countries together in terms of like Australia, New Zealand. They also bring Britain into it as well. I think it's really cool to see the unification of everyone together, all remembering, understanding the effects that happened. They always say that history repeats itself. I think it's very important that we remember these kinds of things and understand why they are so significant so that they don't happen again. You know, I'm really glad that I took the time to learn a little bit more about it and see what Anzac Day is really about. I think there's a lot of things within Australia that I haven't really learned a lot in depth about just because, you know, I'm running around doing my own daily thing, but these kind of things of like sitting down, learning more about the history of the country is so important. And I think everyone should look into their own country's history. I think sometimes we take for granted the sacrifices that people made in the past so that we can live the lives that we live today. I know the election is coming up as well in Australia. So that's why I think it's super important that we get out, we remember our country, but also we play a part in deciding the future of our country as well. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. It was a little bit of a different video than I normally do, but let me know if there's any other things that you want me to react to or learn a little bit more about. Relearning more about my Australian history, the people who came before me, is so interesting, and I love being able to share it with you guys. So if you like this video and want to see more things like this, definitely subscribe and check out my Instagram account too, because I post a little bit more of daily content there. And then with YouTube, I post more weekly content. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you in the next video and much love.